Hey, everybody, we're here together. Senate started a little late today. Here we go.
This meeting of the Senate Judiciary Committee will come to order. There are 6 nominees who've been listed on the agenda for the first time and will be held over. They include
They're
Anthony
pushing through as
Brindisi
many people as
for
they
the District
can.
Court for the Northern District of New York, Elizabeth Combe, District Court for the Northern District of New York, Sarah Davenport, District Court for the District of New Mexico, Tiffany Johnson to the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Georgia, Kelly Neary, U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Pennsylvania, Miranda Holloway, Miranda Holloway Baggett, nominated to be U.S. Marshal for the Southern District of Alabama. S. 2082, the Ensuring Justice for Victims of Terrorism Act, is held over at the request of the sponsors, Senators Cornyn and Blumenthal. We have several items on the agenda. I'll keep my remarks brief. I look forward to the challenges lying ahead. I understand that our friend Senator Grassley is going to be the new chairman of the committee under the new majority. I will be remiss if I didn't thank Lindsey Graham, my colleague and friend, for his partnership on this committee. Today we are considering 2 judicial nominees and 1 U.S. Marshal nominee. We'll also call up for consideration S-2220, the Prevail Act, sponsored by Senators Coons and Tillis, and co-sponsored by Senator Hirono and myself, and S-4713, the IDEA Act, sponsored by Senators Hirono and Tillis, co-sponsored by Senators Coons, Blumenthal, Padilla, Klobuchar, Grassley, and myself. I will reserve my comments on the bills until we reach that item on the agenda. I now turn to the ranking member, Lindsey Graham, for any opening remarks before we start.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, we had a big election. On our side is pretty good, probably exceeded expectations. As how you feel, been there, done that. The sun will rise and the earth will turn. And before you know it, we'll be locked in battles and we'll be looking for ways forward. Senator Grassley, I believe, will be the chairman. The good news is he's going to provide breakfast for all of us at his own expense, which means in about 5 minutes he'll be over here. So I've really enjoyed working with you. We've done some good things. We've had some good fights. Let's pick up where we left on social media. We've done some good work here. I'm very committed to making sure that social media companies have some accountability they don't have today. We'll be in charge here pretty soon, and let's try to remember that at the end of the day, we are able to work together and keep it going. And I will try to have the same attitude as I do now, which is, elections matter. We'll be doing things you don't like, but there are plenty of things we can do together, and I'm looking for that. So God bless you. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, let me just add parenthetically, I've enjoyed the relationship. And the most important part, it's a trusting relationship. We know that I know your word's good, and I hope you feel the same about me. And I think that that's been reflected many, many times in this committee, and I hope
I do very much, Mr. Chairman. You're a man of your word.
We're now going to turn to 2 nominations and 2 pieces of legislation. The first is Ryan Young Park, nominated to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 4th Circuit, a distinguished appellate lawyer with strong ties to North Carolina. He clerked at all levels of the federal judiciary, including for Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Justice David Souter on the U.S. Supreme Court. Mr. Park then worked in private practice before joining the North Carolina Solicitor General's office in 2017. In 2020, he was appointed as the state Solicitor General. To date, he has argued more than 30 appeals, including 10 times in the 4th Circuit, twice before the U.S. Supreme Court. Individuals across the political spectrum support his nomination, including a bipartisan group of current and former state solicitors general, a bipartisan group of Supreme Court clerks, and the National Fraternal Order of Police. Notably, the Biden White House consulted extensively with the North Carolina senators before nominating Mr. Park, including interviewing and reviewing the records of every candidate that the North Carolina senators put forward as an alternative. The White House also agreed to the senators' request to delay this nomination until their new Judicial Selection Commission could run a process. The White House also facilitated multiple interviews for the North Carolina senators with Mr. Park. Contrast this with the experience in the first Trump administration. President Trump announced he would nominate Lawrence Van Dyke, who did not even live in the state of Nevada, to the Ninth Circuit 2 days before Senators Cortez, Masto, and Rosen announced their bipartisan Judicial Selection Commission. Senator Booker was never given the opportunity to interview Paul Mady, who was nominated to a New Jersey seat on the Third Circuit. Senator Baldwin was informed during her very first conversation with the Trump White House about a Seventh Circuit vacancy that President Trump had already decided on a nominee. Senate Republicans confirmed all of these nominees. This established a new floor for consulting with home state senators that the Biden White House has far exceeded for Mr. Park's nomination. Does anyone seek recognition to speak on Mr. Park's nomination?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Tillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm actually glad that you started with the track record because I'd like to talk about my track record first. I've been criticized in many cases for supporting judges that you all wanted confirmed. In fact, I've probably outvoted anyone here on taking a tough vote and supporting Biden administration judges and Obama administration judges. The White House-led counsel proved to be absolutely incompetent in this process. They put forth a list of 4 nominees that they wanted me to choose from that included Ted Budd's opponent in a Senate election, someone who is patently partisan, has a track record to substantiate it, and they think that that's a serious list for me to choose from? And then when I provide them a list of 4, they say not only are they not fit for the Fourth Circuit, but we wouldn't even consider them for a district court judge. I did my homework, and I built relationships on the other side of the aisle, Mr. Chair. I know that this candidate, or that this nominee, has no prayer of getting confirmed by the full U.S. Senate unless Chuck Schumer and my colleagues on the other side of the aisle play a game and wait for a funeral or an illness to cause an absentee problem on our side. I confirmed this morning what I said in this hearing a couple of months ago. I have the votes to defeat this nominee on the floor. So I'm telling my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, I'm kind of wondering what Tom Tillis needs to show up in the Trump administration. The Tom Tillis who was here the last time, who tried to work with you all on some judges, or the Tom Tillis who reflexively votes no? And you're going to give me a lot of things to think about today. If in spite of the fact that I'm telling you now, you can bank on it, that if we have attendance, this nominee will never get confirmed, and you're going to go, yeah, but we need to do it in committee, then I will tell you the same thing next year when the roles are reversed. And they're going to be reversed, ladies and gentlemen. So you're going to either make my job harder by doing the right thing and respecting your colleague today, or you're going to make my job easier because I'm going to go right down the line with the administration. Now, I'd like to seek unanimous consent for an op-ed to show you just how not bipartisan Mr. Park is. I'm not talking about the merits.
Without objection.
I'm not talking about the merits now, folks. I'm talking about you telling me how you want me to behave in a future administration. And I will apologize in advance if I have to remind you of your vote today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else seek recognition?
Good morning.
The nomination, unfavorably reporting the nomination of Ryan Young Park to be U.S. Circuit Judge for the Fourth Circuit, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Whitehouse.
Aye.
Ms. Klobuchar. Ms. Klobuchar? Aye. Sorry, thank you. Mr. Coons. Mr. Blumenthal.
Aye.
Ms. Hirono. Mr. Booker. Mr. Padilla. Mr. Ossoff. Mr. Welsh. Ms. Butler. Mr. Graham.
No.
Mr. Grassley.
No, Buck Rock.
Mr. Cornett.
No.
Mr. Lee.
No.
Mr. Cruz.
No.
Mr. Hawley.
No.
Mr. Cotton.
No vote proxy.
Mr. Kennedy,
No vote proxy.
Mr. Tillis,
I got my answer. No.
Mrs. Blackburn. Chair Durbin.
Aye.
Chair Durbin, on this vote, the ayes are 11, the nays are 10.
The nomination will be favorably reported to the floor. Next is Sharad Desai, U.S. District Court for the District of Arizona. I understand we can voice vote Mr. Desai. Does anyone seek recognition to speak on his nomination? On favorably reporting the nomination of Sharad Harshad Desai to be U.S. District Court for District Judge for the District of Arizona, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, the ayes have it. Does anyone wish
Yeah,
to be
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to record Senator Gressler, Lee, Cruz, Kennedy, Hawley, Blackburn, Cotton as no.
Any other names? That's a complete list. The record will so reflect. The nomination will be favorably reported to the floor. Next consideration is Bobby Jack Woods, U.S. Marshal for the Eastern District of Kentucky. Anyone seek recognition on this nomination? On favorably reporting, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Whitehouse.
Aye.
Ms. Klobuchar. Mr. Coons. Mr. Blumenthal. Ms. Zerano. Mr. Booker. Mr. Padilla. Mr. Ossoff. Mr. Welch. Ms. Butler. Mr. Graham.
Aye.
Mr. Grassley.
No vote proxy.
Mr. Cornyn. No. Mr. Lee. No. Mr. Cruz. No. Mr. Hawley. No. Mr. Cotton.
No by proxy.
Mr. Kennedy.
No by proxy.
Mr. Tillis. No. Mrs. Blackburn. Chair Durbin.
Aye.
Chair Durbin, on this vote, the ayes are 12, the nays are 9.
The nomination will be favorably reported to the floor. Before turning to the bills, we will be voting on, I understand Senator Tillis would like to make a statement about S-2140, the Patent Eligibility Restoration Act.
Yes, Mr. Chair. We've done some. We've had some discussions with members. We feel like we're making good progress, but for the purposes of the markup, I will be withdrawing it from consideration. What I will say, Mr. Chair, is that both on PARA and Prevail, we are making great progress. We are seeing it move closer to a markup than ever before. It's going to get marked up, so those who may be trying to undermine progress of either PARA or Prevail need to get at the table before they get on the table. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Tillis. Today, we're also considering S-2220, the Prevail Act, and I call on Senator Coons.
Thank you, Chair Durbin, and I'd like to thank my colleague, Senator Tillis. We have worked hard on this bill that makes reforms to the Patent Trial and Appeal Board for many years. I have heard from two different members who have asked for us to delay the vote so that they can continue to discuss with me and with Senator Tillis potential amendments that would bring them to support it. Senator Cruz has amendments about making the PTAB process fairer for small and independent inventors. Senator Blackburn has asked for more time for consideration. And I just want to thank and compliment several of my colleagues, our colleagues, Senators Welch and Blumenthal and Klobuchar, who have been leaders in the fight to restrain and reduce the cost of prescription drugs. They had concerns that Prevail's standing requirement might prevent generic competitors and patient advocates from using the PTAB to challenge patents, and I was happy to work with them to address those concerns, add amendments that addressed those issues. And so there's a manager's amendment that I hope to move forward at our next markup. I do not think we should take this vote today, both because of attendance issues and because of the two members who've expressed concern that they would like to support it, but they are not yet prepared to. I am open to talking to any member who'd like to nerd out on IP standing and litigation. I have found many of you eager to have long and detailed conversations about patent procedure and policy. But I will say this. There is some significant misrepresentation going on about what happens at PTAB. 18 of the 20 largest litigants are from big tech who use it to invalidate properly granted patents. And Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your steadfast support of this bill over a number of Congresses, and I look forward to marking it up at our next meeting.
Thank you, Senator Coons. The remaining item on the agenda this morning is S-4713, the IDEA Act, which provides for the collection of information that helps us better understand the barriers inventors face in accessing the patent system. I recognize Senator Hirono.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And this committee has a track record of working in a bipartisan way to approach various issues regarding PTO, and this is another of those bills. So I thank you for this time, and I'm happy that we are considering the IDEA Act today. This bill passed out of this committee and on the floor last Congress with strong bipartisan support. And this bill will direct the Patent and Trademark Office, PTO office, to collect certain demographic data from patent applicants on a confidential and voluntary way. So the reason for this bill is simple. In 2018, we passed, and President Trump signed Senator Grassley's Success Act, which required the PTO to study and report on participation by women, minorities, and veterans in the patent system. I mean, frankly, the idea being that we want to encourage as much participation in the patent system as possible as we compete with countries like China. So the PTO released its report in 2019, and one of its most important findings was that it did not have access to precise enough data to really answer those questions in the Grassley bill. For example, the PTO was forced to guess the gender of inventors based on their first names, and that might work for names like Dick or Clark or Ted, but Corey and Lindsay are much tougher. And the PTO
I didn't
Moving
know
on.
that, but that's good.
I know, we have a Ted and we have a Corey, yes, there we go. And the PTO had no way of guessing based on patent applicant names whether an inventor was a veteran. And that is why the Success Act's report's top recommendation was legislation authorizing the voluntary confidential collection of this information from patent applicants. And we are considering that legislation today. We are in a global competition for innovation with other countries. Our success in that competition depends on harnessing all the talent that our society has to offer. Critically, the IDEA Act would permit the voluntary confidential collection of information in a way that has no impact on which applicants ultimately receive a patent. And the bill requires that the PTO keep collected demographic information separate from the patent application, and that it not be considered by patent examiners in considering patent applications. I want to thank Senator Tillis for joining me once again in championing this bill. He is a strong defender of American innovation and a consistent champion for IP rights. I also want to thank Senator Grassley, who is a co-sponsor, and as I said, whose Success Act gave rise to the idea for this bill in the first place. And the chair and Senators Coons, Blumenthal, Padilla, and Klobuchar for joining me as co-sponsors.
Mr. Chair?
Senator Tillis.
I just, actually a belated thank you to Senator Hirono. Yesterday, I thanked Senator Blackburn for all of her work on the subcommittee, and Senator Hirono as well. She's attended a lot of the committees, done a lot of work. And the IDEA Act, I believe that I believe in this theory that the inventors and leaders are evenly distributed amongst races, religions, creeds, ethnicities. And we've got to get to all of them. And the way that we do that is to find out how many are at the table now and what strategies can we implement to get more at the table. So I think this is another very positive step of several steps that I've followed Senator Hirono's lead on. So this is Happy Tom supporting the bill. Mad Tom's still mad, but that's a different transaction. I hope everybody supports this bill.
Any other senators seek recognition to speak or offer an amendment?
If I could briefly, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Coons.
I'd just like to join my colleagues in saying to Senator Hirono, thank you for your persistent and determined engagement in making sure that access to the Patent and Trademark Office, access to the opportunities to record and invent are as broadly distributed as are the skills and gifts of the American people. Thank you.
If no one else seeks recognition, let's vote on final passage. The clerk will call the roll on S 4713.
Mr. Whitehouse.
Aye.
Ms. Klobuchar. Aye. Mr. Coons.
Aye.
Mr. Blumenthal.
Aye.
Ms. Hirono.
Aye.
Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Padilla. Mr. Ossoff. Mr. Welch. Ms. Butler. Mr. Graham.
Aye.
Mr. Grassley.
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Cornyn. Mr. Lee.
No.
Mr. Cruz. Mr. Hawley. Mr. Cotton.
No by proxy.
Mr. Kennedy.
No by proxy.
Mr. Tillis. Mrs. Blackburn.
No by proxy.
Chair Durbin.
Aye.
Chair Durbin, on this vote, the ayes are 15, the nays are 6.
The bill will be favorably reported to the floor. Is there any further business to come before the committee? If not, the committee stands adjourned.
All right. Short one. Like I said, they were pushing through, or the agenda was revised to reflect an extra 7 judges, which is not a small amount of judges. But they only managed to get the one that was on the agenda pushed through the committee, and then one extra one. I think she would have been a New Mexico, for the United States District of New Mexico. No, sorry. It was Sherrod Desai, District of Arizona. So they pushed through a Fourth Circuit judge and through the committee, and then they pushed through a District of Arizona judge. Could have been worse. I was prepared to go to battle this morning. I was angry. They started late. They're pushing through too many judges. It's and Durbin went on to say, he knows they probably should have stopped around November 5th, but he's going to push through as many as they can. You got to wonder why they didn't go for the full 7 that they had, revised the agenda to reflect. Now, coming up at 11:30 today, the Oversight Committee has a select subcommittee hearing, the select subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic. The hearing is titled Preparing for the Next Pandemic, Lessons Learned and the Path Forward. I think I'm going to try to cover it. These are riskier hearings to cover, right? Because somebody can mention something that YouTube or the World Health Organization doesn't like, and ultimately it could get, let's just say, extra attention that we don't want. Henry Walk, MD, Director of Office of Readiness and Response, will be a witness. Hillary Marston, MD, Chief Medical Officer, U.S. Food and Drug Administration, and Lawrence Tabak, DDS, PhD, Principal Deputy Director, National Institutes of Health, at 11:30. I think we're going to try to go live with that one. So if that is it, everybody, what do you think about Thune getting elected? I don't know enough about him. I don't watch him. He's not on any of the committees that I regularly watch. Now, I practice law in South Dakota, and he is the South Dakota senator. It's not usually the worst thing to have someone in the state that you are living in or doing business in having a position of influence. Right? So, for me, it's pretty much a neutral thing. It could have been some nameless person from a state that doesn't have anything to do with me. And that's always frustrating. Like, who? Who is this person? Our Dunbar numbers are only about 150, and there's 500, 600 of these people, 400 and something in the House, and then another 100 in the Senate. You can't memorize everybody. I was listening to Elon and maybe Vivek talk about the agencies they're going to be trying to slash, right? And there's so many agencies and sub-agencies. I think there's $400+ trillion budget. Is there any one person who has them all memorized? And I think the answer is probably no. It's too many. It's just too many. There's one savant somewhere out there. Yeah, but that's it for now. I think we're gonna go. Little dog is barking outside. I think he needs a little bit of attention, and then I'll try to come back for 11:30 for the oversight coronavirus moving forward. All right, everybody, let me know. You need to come at me. David11esq.com. You can buy the mugs at davethelawyer.store. It's my favorite. It's my drug of choice. Coffee, caffeine. All right, everybody.